Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to be breaking down a really wide-ranging interview with Devin Nunes, former congressman, now CEO of Trump Media. We'll get into his take on 4 major challenges and, more importantly, the solutions he's proposing.
Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First, the political puzzle of winning a midterm election. Then, we'll look at the ideological problem of a changing opposition. After that, we dive into the information battle over online censorship. And finally, we'll tackle the massive, future-facing problem of our world's energy needs. Let's get into it.
All right, first up, we're tackling a classic political challenge. The interview kicks off by framing just how hard it is, historically, for a president's party to win in the midterms.
So the interview starts by highlighting a pattern that, anyone who follows politics knows all too well. A president's party almost always struggles to hold on to Congress in a midterm. And this isn't some old-timey problem. The source points out this exact thing happened during the Bush, Obama, and Trump presidencies. It's a tough hill to climb. So the big question is, how do you beat those odds? Well, according to Nunes, it's not impossible, but you need a very specific formula. The interview lays out these 3 key ingredients. First, a really strong growing economy, so people feel good about their finances. Second, a foreign policy that projects strength and keeps things safe abroad. And third, and this is a big one, you need good local candidates who actually get their communities, not just people spitting out national talking points.
Okay, from politics, let's pivot to ideology. The next part of the interview describes what it sees as a fundamental shift in the very nature of political opponents.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The interview draws this incredibly sharp line between 2 types of opposition. On one side, you have what it calls traditional liberals, using someone like Congressman Barney Frank as the model. Someone who, could clearly lay out their policy positions and debate them. But that's contrasted with what the source calls a new generation of Neo-Marxists, who are framed less as debaters and more as pure political tacticians, focused only on winning.
And this quote right here, it really just captures the whole argument in a nutshell. I mean, the language is pretty stark. The point being made isn't just the policies are shifting left, but that the entire approach to politics has changed, moving away from debate and towards what's described as pure win-at-all-costs tactics.
Okay, so with that as the political backdrop, the interview then shifts gears to a problem happening in the digital world, this perception of widespread censorship that, in their view, made a whole new platform necessary.
The origin story of Truth Social is framed here as a direct reaction to a problem. The interviewer says the company wasn't created just because Trump wanted a public company or something. No, it was because he and a lot of other people felt they were being banned or shadow banned, where their posts were basically being hidden from view by the big tech platforms. So they saw a real necessity to build an alternative and, in their words, open up the internet.
And man, this timeline really shows what a bumpy road it was. I mean, look at this. The company's plan to go public and get access to a ton of capital was held up for more than 2 years by what the source calls regulatory hurdles with the SEC. Even the app rollout was rocky. It hit the Apple App Store way before it was allowed on Google's. It was definitely a difficult journey just to get the thing off the ground.
All right, for our final section, the interview makes a huge leap. We're shifting from media and politics to what's presented as a solution to one of the biggest problems facing the entire planet: our future energy needs.
So here's the problem being laid out. We are on a massive collision course. On one side, you've got these incredible new technologies like AI that are just unbelievably power hungry. And on the other side, you've got an aging, strained power grid that is just not ready for that kind of demand.
And the scale of this demand is just staggering. The interviewer brings up analysts who think that AI alone could triple our global need for electricity. Let that sink in. A 3-fold increase. The takeaway is pretty clear. Our current setup just can't handle that kind of surge.
So what's the giant solution being put on the table? Nuclear fusion. And the source is really careful to make a distinction here. This isn't traditional nuclear power. That's fission, where you split atoms apart. Fusion is the opposite. You're combining them, just like the sun does, to unleash these massive amounts of clean energy. And the interview really highlights the key differences with the specific fusion tech being pursued by the company merging with Trump Media. First off, the fuel. Instead of uranium, it uses boron, which is non-radioactive. That's a huge deal. Then there's the footprint. We're talking about a site that's maybe 20 acres versus hundreds of acres for a traditional nuclear plant. And crucially, the source makes a point to say this whole effort is being driven by the private sector, not the government.
Now, this isn't just some vague dream. The interview lays out a very clear multi-year plan.
They've reportedly already proven the tech with 5 successful prototypes. So, the next big step is to get the capital they need through this public merger. From there, the goal is to start building the very first commercial-grade reactor in 2026. And once that design is perfected, scale it up to create much, much larger power plants.
And just to drive home how significant this is, Nunes calls the race for fusion energy Manhattan 2.0. Wow. I mean, that's a massive comparison, framing this as a project on the same scale as the original Manhattan Project, something essential for America's ability to compete on the world stage.
And that really brings us to the final takeaway. This isn't just being presented as a technological challenge, but as a super high-stakes global competition. You've got the United States, led by this private sector effort on one side, and on the other, you've got state-funded fusion programs in China. The question of who gets there first is framed as having these profound consequences for who will literally own the energy market of the future, a pretty big question to end on.